Welcome to today's College Financial Prep Preparing for College podcast. Very excited to have my friend Courtney here with us today. As many of you know, a lot of the work that I do at College Financial Prep involves divorced parents, paying for college, trying to figure it all out. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with separation and divorce, it's easy to negotiate that road and come to terms, be in agreement with a former spouse, and figure out how best to navigate the paying for college for a child. Courtney, do me a favor, introduce yourself to everyone, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Chicvak, and I am the founder of Courtney Anne Chicvak Mediation and Coaching. We specialize in facilitative mediation for families and negotiation coaching for business professionals. I'm so happy to be here and to be a part of your podcast, Vicki.
And
I've been talking about this for a while.
I'm glad that you're here today. I'm always talking about divorce and college, and there are lots of similarities. Everybody's situation is unique. Just want to talk a little bit today about conflict resolution, how to move forward when you're in that situation. Sometimes it's not even always about the finances. Sometimes it's just who's right, who's in your work. Do me a favor. You see it all the time. What are some tips that you could share to help people as they begin to navigate this?
Through my divorce mediation experience and also through my negotiation coaching experience, I think the biggest takeaway that I've seen is open communication. So if you are able to talk about these issues sooner rather than later and come up with an idea of what everyone's looking for and share that information earlier, it will make the process of when college admissions or college applications start much easier, right? So there's a difference between starting to plan in 7th grade or 8th grade compared to 11th grade, just took the SAT, and now we're talking about
Definitely
college for the first time.
Too often, people will come to me and granted, this is on a state by state basis, but a lot of times college isn't even mentioned in a divorce agreement. So ideally, you will talk about it sooner rather than later.
And I know some parents are always hesitant, especially when they have younger children. They think that college is so far away and it's not something that they have to talk about right now. For example, if the child is in elementary school or middle school and parents are getting divorced, they're always hesitant to put a lot of wording in an agreement around college, but the discussion is going to come up and time flies, right?
Definitely.
So quickly to talk about these things, and specifically topics you can talk about are just generally speaking, what are your goals or what are your ideas around college? When parents start to communicate about that sooner, one parent might have one vision of what a child's college life will look like, and the other parent might have a totally different idea.
Oh, definitely.
To just get that out there sooner rather than later can be really helpful.
The other thing that you brought up just before was communication. And I can't stress it enough. When I'm talking to families, not only do I want the parents communicating with each other, I want the parents communicating with the high school student. I want them all working towards a shared goal. I've seen way too often, May 1st of senior year is decision day. And like the week before decision day, like the parents end up having to let down the child. The child can't go to their dream school because they just can't make the financials work. Like if everybody is like open about, what the goals or the boundaries are beforehand, it's so much easier, and, no broken hearts at that point.
Yeah.
It's awful seeing, the kids are upset, the parents are upset that they can't give them, give the child what they want. And, so much better to talk about it all sooner.
And so one of the things that we do in mediation is it's a collaborative process, right? Sometimes you're in competition with each other, and that makes, certain circumstances, maybe that makes sense. But in other circumstances, it can be ideal to collaborate with one another and see if you can find middle ground. So if people show up, or if parents show up and child shows up and they're not all on the same page, if they're communicating and they adopt a collaborative approach, so they try to work together They try to understand each other's perspectives. Also, in my line of work, we talk about positions versus interests. So position is the demand. So for example, I want the child to go to a specific college, but then there are the interests of, well, why do you want that child to go to that college? Is it the location? Is it the academic program? Is it, you went to that college yourself? I mean, there can be a lot of reasons why someone's asking for what they're asking. So to really uncover that can be helpful when you're having these conversations. Like, what about this is important to you? And then communicate and exchange those points of view.
So just so everybody realizes, like divorce in college, it's the one area I think that can be a win-win for both parents. By working together, it's possible for both parents to save money on the cost of college. Not necessarily true with the other areas of divorce.
Yes, that's right. And I also feel like there are so many decisions that have to be made around college that it allows for trade-offs to be made, right? If you're doing college visits, maybe one parent has family in that area. So maybe they can, fold in the college visit to save expenses. Like maybe somebody has a connection for SAT prep and they can work out a discount. If they're communicating and they're working together, there can be options for trade-offs, and you're going to cover this, you'll cover that, to make it a win-win outcome.
Right. No, but I'm talking about even more like working together, depending on the schools, depending on where the child is applying. I've literally had clients that were, and trust me, this isn't everybody, but I've had clients literally able to save like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Kind of stars have to be aligned, but working together and planning strategically, like it is possible. That's fabulous when that happens. But it's important to get on the same page as early as possible in the college process.
I agree. And also another thing we talk about is, I think for your work, Vicki, communicating with the colleges, right?
It's the applications, the negotiating, the appeals, it depends on the scenario, and each dynamic is is unique. There's always a little things that need to be nuanced, but it's communicating within the family and then also with the colleges.
Yeah. So presenting that united front, if you can work together when
it's definitely best for everybody. For anybody who's divorced, the animosity, the whatever, this is the one area I think that everyone can really like come together.
Yes. And so
for the benefit of the child.
Agreed. So I understand that for some people who are listening, they might be thinking, there's no way that we could come together and talk about this based upon my situation. And so we're talking about negotiating. There is another option, which is mediation, where you have a neutral and impartial third party help you facilitate your negotiation around this topic. So if you feel like, I've tried to have this conversation and I'm just not getting anywhere, there always is the option where you can have a mediator work with you and your ex to have this conversation and see if they can help with coming up with collaborative solutions to challenges with college.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I'm not, I'm not a trained mediator. I don't, do the whole process. But when it comes to the college stuff, yeah, I act as that neutral third party. It definitely very, very helpful for families. So tell us about some of the other ways for conflict resolution, getting everybody to work together. What if one party doesn't want to participate?
So back to the communication skills. So another skill that you can use is active listening when you are communicating about college. So active listening involves summarizing what you're hearing and asking an open-ended question after. So that is a skill that you can use when having these conversations about college. So for example, if your ex says, I want my child to go to a specific school, you would respond, so it sounds like you want the child to go to a specific school. Tell me more about that. Why is that important to you? And so you would repeat back what you heard and ask a question instead of just responding back. And so that can help the communication be a little bit smoother.
I've definitely, there are always instances like that I'll run into, somebody's just, one parent's like, nope, this is it. This is all I'm willing to do. Any advice for people in that situation when, I know that one parent always has the option to just pay more and deal with it. But there's always, it's more than hurt feelings. What is it that I'm, and any suggestions?
Well, I think one thing in the line of work that I do is we have a saying that we can't control or change other people's behaviors. We can only control ourselves and what we do. So how are we showing, or how are you showing up to this conversation? Is there any way that you could change how you're communicating with them that could get a different response? So unless you have, a court telling the parent, you have to do X, Y, and Z, they're not going to be required to do anything. So that's where it gets a little challenging. And that's where, as a parent, you have to think, well, how have I approached this in the past? And is there any other ways or strategies that I could show up differently to the conversations to get a possible different outcome?
That's fabulous. What else should, we're talking about, parents and kids going to college and just, in general, parents with kids, if people are thinking about going for mediation, any suggestions what people should be considering?
Just generally speaking, mediation offers an alternative to a litigated process. So the benefit is that, you're going to be parents for the rest of your life. So there's an incentive to be collaborative and try to work together for the sake of the child and for the sake of each other, and just having a smooth next 30, 40, 50, 60 years of your life.
I mean, there's always graduations, there's weddings, there's becoming grandparents. It's still till death do you part.
Exactly. So you're still going to be in each other's lives. So why not try to make it a positive experience if you can?
Yeah, totally agree with that.
So mediation, just as an alternative, does tend to save a lot of time, a lot of money, and just a lot of resources. Like the emotional expense of a litigated divorce can be very high. So if you could do a process like mediation, it could be, beneficial in those ways as well.
So who are good candidates for mediation? Is everyone a good candidate or not so much?
So I have a screening process, and most mediators do, where we talk about whether or not the case is suitable for mediation. Generally speaking, if the parties are both committed, so a requirement for mediation is both parties have to agree that they want to participate. So if there's a situation where one parent says, I would love to do mediation, and the other parent says, absolutely not, I don't want to participate, we can't move forward in that case just because it's a voluntary process. So both of them have to opt in or choose to do it. So that can be a challenge. Also, if there's any history of domestic violence, generally speaking, those cases aren't appropriate for mediation, and there are other options that those couples would have.
Oh, wow. Tell us more. Tell us about a story, typical situation that you've seen.
I will say a mediation is a confidential process. So that is one of the benefits that, unlike going to court, mediation is private, the information isn't out there or public. So I can't really talk about any specific cases, but
no names, no.
I received very positive feedback from people who have done divorce mediation, that they said, this was much easier than I had thought it was going to be going through this process, and that they were grateful that this was even an option. I've had people say, I wasn't really sure what to expect, and this exceeded my expectations.
Fabulous. And what about the children involved?
So in a divorce mediation, the children are not in the mediation room just because, they're adult conversations happening between adults. But if the children are older, their opinion could be considered as part of the parents' discussion. There is always that point of, the child shouldn't be put in the middle. So it's not appropriate for the child to be playing messenger or being put in the middle between the parents. So it's a conversation between the two spouses.
And what about, obviously in mediation, you're going to talk about things like, custody and child support.
Mhm.
Is college always part of the conversation? Is it not part of the conversation if one parent doesn't want to discuss it?
So we use a checklist. I've been very fortunate. I was trained by someone who's doing divorce mediation for over 40 years, and he put together a very useful divorce mediation checklist. So all of the couples receive this checklist, and we work through the items that pretty much every single divorce case needs to consider. Some of the items on the list are more relevant than others, but college is always an item on that list. The topic does come up.
Okay, fabulous.
If there are children involved, of course.
Right. No, because I'm telling you, I see those divorce agreements that just say we'll revisit it when the kids are, about to go. And it's like, about to go, that's too late. Ideally, especially when the parents are divorced, like we should be talking about ways to strategize and position the family by 11th grade to see if there's anything that we can do. By the time a child is picked to school, it's too late.
Yeah, so that is a topic that is on that checklist, and all the parents receive it to talk about it during the mediation. And I know it can be a hard conversation to have because, especially when the child's younger, you don't want to think about it, but it is coming up. So it's essential to plan ahead so you have a sense of what's going to happen.
Right. Wow. A lot of stuff to take in. Any other tips that you want to share? Any other thoughts? I
would just say that, like I was saying before, collaboration is key. If you can work together, this is a team effort, and everybody is hoping for the best outcome for the child. And so everyone can work together to make that happen. It is usually a much easier process, and keeping those lines of communication open throughout it.
And the mediator will help with opening those lines of communication.
Absolutely, yes. If you can't do it yourself, a mediator can help you with that.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Do me a favor, tell everyone where they can find you.
So you can go on my website. It's www.cacmediation.com. I'm also on Instagram, CAC Mediation, and on LinkedIn.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Courtney, for being here today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. You're very, very welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's episode of College Financial Preps Preparing for College podcast. Take care.